All right, welcome to the Node API team meeting on loadings March. And I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Hmm.
All right, it should be the Node API team project board. And any issue people would like to bring up first before we dive into the lists? All right, maybe we can start with the in progress list.
Yes, that one. Where are we at? Yes. So you had mentioned deprecating the array buffer call, and
Yeah.
originally I was like, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. But then on the flip side, I was thinking about it yesterday, and I don't know because it like if you are, an add-on writer and you are guaranteed that your data view will never have a shared array buffer and it would
Yep.
always just be a regular array buffer,
Yep.
then perhaps yeah, it's kind of what I said in that comment there. It just seems to be a little excessive. I guess, oh, that's just the data view buffer as array buffer or whatever. It's not
Right.
shared array buffer. But yeah, you see what I'm saying? It just seems like a unnecessary step for them to to have to write, I guess. I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that really makes sense. I think the only issue is that we should probably document this behavior because we do have a type check when we perform .s. I think it was documented in
Yes.
the conversion. It's not in conversion. It's in value type handling values .s. Sorry. Maybe I can search for the on this one. It's in another one.
Yeah, I do know what you're referring to, and I did document that in the merge request.
Oh, really?
I think under files changed for the data view MD. Yeah, there's this note here. Note, if the data view is not backed by an array buffer, this method will terminate the process with a fatal error when using that enabled type check on as, or exhibit undefined behavior otherwise, because you would have a, I guess it would be undefined because you'd have an API value stored in a array buffer that's not an array buffer. So I don't know what would happen then.
Yeah, well, in many cases, Node.js or V8 will handle it correctly because their V8 internally have the basically the same operation between array buffer and the shared array buffer, but I'm not
Right.
I think you're right that it'll be an undefined behavior for other engines implementation because I don't know if they handle the array buffer and the shared array buffer identically. So I
Mhm.
think that makes sense. I think an alternative would be like, can we update this document as well? Because I think this time usually people will get
Okay.
like inline document hint when they are in like coding in an IDE or code editor, like say
Right.
dot or buffer, and code editor will hint about this document, and this document does not say there will be a non-defined behavior at all. So even if we are not like deprecating this method, maybe we can just say if like if you're expecting a shared buffer, this method will not do what you really want. You should probably use the buffer method that we just introduced.
Yeah, that sounds good. I can absolutely do that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Um, And then yeah, that should just be it then. Yeah, I'm just taking a quick little note.
And there is a way to kind of find out like what type of buffer we wrap in, right?
Yeah,
You can
you,
perform type what's the method code?
there's a is array buffer or is shared array buffer
Okay,
on the value object that will return true or false. And that's what's being used internally when you use the as typecast if you have that type checking enabled.
excellent. Yeah, I've seen some APIs, like for example, JSON APIs. They often like they do have functions to retrieve some specific types, like number or like some others, but they also have some methods to figure out what exactly wrapped there. It sounds to me very similar. So
Yep,
Yeah, like you would be able to like if you don't know what is in your data view, you would use data view dot buffer and then is array buffer, then you'd be able to use as array buffer, or else you would do is shared array buffer and as shared array buffer.
right, right,
But if you're guaranteed to know that it's always just going to be a regular array buffer, then you can just use the array buffer method and skip the buffer method.
right.
Okay, I've taken a note and I've put a comment in that thread. So I'll be able to handle the rest of that hopefully this weekend.
yep. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right. Please review the document, review the progress, and hopefully we can land it after Kevin updated. Anything else for this progress?
Nothing here.
Thank you very much. And the second one will be the get prototype and set prototype. And I think Nick has commented on the progress as well.
Yeah. That slipped my mind, slipped my radar. I'll address those comments.
Yep, thank you. So please take a look at the progress. And the next one would be the thread function fix in the main core repo.
I you had requested some changes to the test, and I did that in that commit there to add an assert,
Yeah,
basically. So now the context just holds these two states of created and called. And then when the callback is called, you assert that the state is created, and then you set it to called. And then when it's finalized, you assert that the state was called.
yep. Um, cool. Thank you. I think I'm going to run it locally to see what it happens with what the main branch is, if the main branch is crashing on the new test, and then I'll run it with the fix so that we can verify that the like you mentioned here, if the
Mm-hmm.
new fix does fix an issue on the main branch. And yeah, the progress looks good to me overall. Thank you very much for doing it.
Mm-hmm. I'll go ahead and update the comment too, because now since it doesn't have logs, the comment is a little I guess not this one, but the next one where I have the crash stack trace in my next comment.
Which one?
If you go to the conversation of the
Oh,
pull request,
yep,
yeah, the next comment that I made here with the stack trace, yeah, with the all of those logs now are not. I'll update, remove that
yeah.
because it's no longer valid for the
I
test to
think
move.
essentially it should be like it'll crash without the fix because of the asserts.
Yes,
And with the fix, the test should just exit normally.
exactly. Yep. So
Yep,
I'll update this to make it more uh, correct.
yep. Thank you very much. Any? comments on the pull request? Yeah, please take a look at the pull request. Thank you very much. Next one is also in Node add-on API repo. I don't think there was any update. We can see if we will be able to get an update from the author, or maybe we can help with the fix up to get the feature landed. I think this is a similar condition. We didn't get an update from the author, so let's sit back and wait a little bit. Anything else to update?
Yeah, this node embed start function, like
Yep.
the author merged this branch I proposed, and they also gave me access. So technically, I believe rebase it if needed. But technically,
Cool.
it's a feature now ready to review.
Cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm going to approve the workflow.
Yeah, I remember like our biggest thing was about naming, and last time I tried to use prefix node.rt, and it didn't play well with this group. And then the current approach, like proposal, using this node embed. So
Yep.
instead of embedding, like it's a little bit shorter, but it still kind of drives a kind of point. I'm just curious what you guys think about this new approach.
I think it looks good to me. And we are also marking the new API as experimental. So yeah, looks good to me.
Okay. But please have a look at this PR.
Yeah, sure.
Believe it can be ready to go.
Thank you very
Mhm.
much. Anything else? Any comments on the new change? Cool. Thank you. Um, any other issues people would like to bring up in the in progress list?
I would love to know the state of the vtable reverse module thing that Vladimir was working on. I don't know if it's just paused or
Yeah, I think a ball is on my
connected.
side. I'm supposed to change testing suite, and I'm supposed to create uh, new PR just for new tests. Like we discussed, like currently we're running all the different tests together, and proposal is actually to have a function, and this function will receive kind of array of different plugins and stuff to run. Because my current implementation of tests in this repo was follow exactly the same pattern as before. So technically, all the different variations is inside of comments. You see, we have this new command called add-ons. So we can run exactly the same test against the different add-ons. And I think we discussed last time that going forward, probably we don't want to use it. Instead, we want to change them to be more like if you think about the node tests, a node test will have a special function test, and this function typically accepts some kind of lambda and to run this lambda. So in addition to lambda, we'll have additional parameters which we can pass to this lambda.
Yeah, I think the issue just down to that if we are using magical commands, which will put the burden on the test runner, and for example, if we are going to port this particular test to like the new CTS test suite, I think it will need the test runner to parse this JavaScript file and extract this magic command to run it in different conditions. But if we are like rewriting the test to put all the steps in a lambda, and the lambda can be run with different add-ons, there will be no like magic commands. And I feel like it would be easier to be ported to different runtimes.
Okay, yeah. I did experiment in one of the recent PRs, well, we can come into that. But I did an experiment with the like experimental flags for the CTS and potentially like where it will basically skip a test or like have a no up for it. Like it will have the test in an if block where it's basically guarded by the feature flag. Um, and potentially something like this could work the same. I don't know, like be either it supports one or the other, and then it would basically choose to import, like to load one add-on or another add-on, maybe
I
to do.
think the experimental flag is a different case. So for the vtable tests, we would like to run the same test with two different add-ons. The
Yeah.
first add-on will be like still be compiled without vtable. And the second add-on will be like it's compiled with the vtable. And we want the two add-ons to behave the same and pass the same test suite. But for experimental features, I don't think we would have like say if the add-on is compiled without the experimental features, it should probably not like it should probably skip the experimental test.
Okay, so I think I understand it now. Potentially, like
Yeah.
we want to run the entire test suite in two different modes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. It's nice to know. I think that can definitely be added on later
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Also, I think given that it's in the test, we are talking about how the test suite should be like for the vtable. I think please take a look on this pull request and we can it'll probably impact how we are going to port this test to CTS once vtable is available in the core repo. So yeah, please take a look.
Yeah, I'll try. Thanks. It's something like this PR is something that we're very excited about. I think still,
Yeah, sure.
just to let you know, Vladimir, no pressure.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate support. Yeah.
All right, cool. Anything else on this progress? Let's move ahead. Anything else people would like to bring up in the in progress list? If not, I think we can potentially jump to the triage list to see what's new. Maybe we can get started with the CTS repo, given that Corinne is here. Corinne, would you like to help us navigate between the
Yeah, I
several
think it's
tests,
mostly
several progress?
probably mostly driven by the three pull requests that I have in the has PR column, I believe. The other ones are two draft pull requests that are in neat triage. So maybe okay, I should actually move those two in progress, I believe. I can do that. They basically just need rebasing once the other things merge. I will move the what is
Right.
your criteria for in progress versus to do? It's just like I'm actively working on it, right?
Uh, to do are usually issues without an open pull request, and in
Okay.
progress I will just put every pull request that we have been in discussion.
Yeah.
And has PR are issues with open pull request. So I think that's kind of like the strategy because we want to distinguish between the issues and pull request and that we didn't had a chance to talk about, so that we will be sure to visit them in the next Node API meetings. And these three columns are like we are keep keeping track of the progress. Yeah.
I think mostly what I thought about discussing was probably the 3 pull requests that I have in has PR, or like which are open PRs that are ready for review, basically.
These 3.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
And I think you approved 2 of them. I don't have merge rights to the repo.
Yeah, I think I approved them in probably yesterday or days ago, and I would like to give people here in the room a chance to take a look before I merge it.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
so this one is basically solving the or closing the issue of providing a way for the implementer to signal whether they have implemented or have support for specific experimental APIs. And the idea is just to yeah, for this you can see the first file here is basically the node implementer declaring that it has support for specific APIs here. Some of my later pull requests will clarify this because, for example, shared array buffer, I believe, uh, in Node API is not supported for every version of Node. So it's basically you can do runtime checks here where you say like if it's within some range, then we do support it, or otherwise we don't.
Right.
So right now it's just declaring yes, and then I have other tests that will, or sorry, other PRs that will clarify this better. And then when you go into a test, I don't know if we have, well, I guess we have the features here. You can go to the feature test here. It's just that we're just testing that all these are Booleans. And so the idea is that you can do like a if expected, or sorry, if experimental feature dot shared array buffer, then you can do something. Otherwise, you don't do it in the test, and you just silently skip the test, basically.
Yep.
So I try to not be too extreme about it, I guess. And then I have the one change that I'm doing is so because we want to make this work on Windows as well, right? We use
Yep.
these def files here to basically link, like to instruct the linker what functions are available. And I am committing also here the update headers script here that's gonna pull from a like a checkout of the repo. Oh yeah, okay, GitHub. Yeah, sorry, yes, it's just gonna fetch the headers from there.
Yep.
And then it's gonna use was it, I believe, Clang maybe to extract. Yeah, we're using Clang here to dump the AST from that to get those the functions in specific situation. Like we want to make sure that we have the experimental ones and the non-experimental and stuff like that. So it's the outcome of running this is basically getting the header files on disk inside the include file, include directory, and then it's going to build up these 4.def files with basically the subsets of the functions, if that makes sense. Am I making sense? Sort of.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the reason that we didn't use the Node API headers
Yeah,
file was that the headers package was that the headers package did not expose the experimental
exactly. Yeah.
symbols.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it makes sense for us to keep a um headers including the experimental APIs here because we do want to test them.
Mhm. Yeah. And it does also support branch here, for example, to
Yeah,
which is a specific one.
I think usually we should pull the main branch changes because usually the headers on the main branch should be the latest.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're doing a pull request where you need to, I don't know what the workflow is gonna be in the future, but like,
Yeah.
potentially we should have. I mean, you can hack this if you need to pull from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and then also I guess the root you can see here, it has like the make CMake list file. We're defining a new function that you can use to declare a new add-on. So the way the CTS is set up, each of the different directories, I'm doing like a port from the binding zip file into a CMake list file. And there, for each of the add-ons that were declared as targets in the binding zip file, we are calling the CMake function like add node API CTS add-on or CTS experimental add-on. And the only difference is here that we're also putting in the compile definition for NAPI experimental, and also um, the like the wiring up the def file for Windows basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. Any comments on the progress? Well, I think I approved the progress already, but please feel free to take a look at the progress again. And yeah, I think usually the rules for us in Node.js core repo was that we will kind of like merge if we have one approval, we'll merge it in 7 days, and if we have at least 2 approvals, we'll merge it in 2 days. We don't have to be such strict on the CTS test repo, but I would still feel more comfortable if we have the chance for most of us to review it. So I will probably wait for 1 or 2 days to give people a chance to review.
I have more like a generic question. Like I didn't follow for previous development in this repo, and my question will be how different this imported test from the original tests. How this import works? Like what kind like.
So as you can see in some of my PR descriptions, also I'm using Cloud Code more for this, and I have a skill defined for doing the porting. And so one of the rules that I have for the skill is basically the C or C++ code has to be like copied verbatim. Like it needs to be the exact same C++. So mainly it's the JavaScript that's different. And the way that it's different also has like certain rules around, or like heuristics for how it's being ported. Like for example, a require call gets turned into a load add-on call, which is provided by the harness, for example. If that makes sense.
This one, I feel like we have a test harness to encapsulate the require function or the open function in Node.
Yeah.
So in some sense, it intersects with what I want to do with this test. Like I'm pretty much changing. I'm going to change all JavaScript files for our tests to have more like a test approach, to have some kind of lambdas, and to have effectively some kind of parameters, what different add-ons we need to load. So technically, all this loading is going to happen. It will be no more required inside of our tests. So all this loading will happen in this new script I'm developing. So my question is more like about how to get us aligned with this CTS then.
Yeah, I think my current understanding was just that I wanted to port as closely to the existing test as possible. Right, that was my grounding. And those tests move and they turn out to be different. I need to revisit that assumption or like change that. Like I try specifically not to introduce anything that's semantically different between the CTS and the existing tests.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Anyway, like let me implement it for review, and then we can discuss if this approach also will be CTS-able.
Yeah. So I think there is something about how you can load add-ons on the various different implementers. It's not guaranteed that you can load it from a string template, for example. Like the thing that defines what add-ons gets loaded, it might need to be a string literal. for some implementers, because it's not necessarily something that can be backed by a scan of a file system, if that makes sense. Or you would have to have some, like, I mean, on React Native, we've talked about that, but those the add-on, the dynamic library on disk might not be placed in the same directory. Well, at build time it might be, but at when it's actually loading and running at runtime, it might not be co-located with the JavaScript file because it's bundled. So there's some details there that might make it more difficult if we are relying on like strings that gets like the current test, for example, inject this build type, for example, as a part of the path for the add-on to be loaded, and it's hard to support in a meaningful way.
Yeah, like in the test, even you saw like what I'm doing right now. If I have this comment, I only have a name of a don. Like I don't have any paths, no nothing.
Yeah.
So it's already changed. My kind of next step will be just converting these comments to strings,
Yeah.
and it will be up to this utility JavaScript to figure out how exactly this add-on needs to be loaded. The only thing I found that in some tests we can't load add-on before we call tests. Like in some tests we really need to load them before. So technically, this lambda should receive effectively a function which would load it.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's kind of some implementation details. It's just
Yeah. But if you can tag me on specific, like I would love to dive in and understand the specifics of that proposal. Not that I'm like just to understand it.
let me just add you to kind of ping you on this pull request. I'm going to create it soon and next few days, and so you will see it. So we can, instead of talking something abstract terms right now, it's better to see code and
yeah. And there's also an opportunity of like this going into, if this is to the Node.js main repo, like that will move along, right? And then at some time maybe the CTS needs to catch up. That might also be an option if they like, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I'm not doing anything unnatural. I just was curious. It's great to hear that that you're trying to kind of keep as close as possible to original code, and it's what.
Yeah, definitely. Like
It,
I wanna extend the CTS eventually with corner cases, edge cases that we see in the wild, but for now it should be as close as possible to a port. Just the only things that are different is the things where we are reaching into Node.js runtime APIs. We need to provide that through the harness abstraction every time they do something like accessing the GC global or accessing file system or whatever. It needs to happen through the harness, a global injected by the harness. That's the idea, at least. Otherwise, it should be one by line by line matching.
I'd actually probably question to Cheng Zhong. Like I was trying to change our test. I also trying to do all these different globals inside of our. You see, in December, then I was doing this pull requests for vtables. I probably had like 4 or 5 different iterations of this, and I tried to use globals. Like I was thinking, like it also will kind of pass towards CTS. And I had so many different issues with our linter because our linter said like, "Oh, it's a global thing. I don't know about."
Yeah, I think the linters in the core repo is much more strict about the globals because we don't want Node.js internals Node.js internals accidentally expose something on the global. So the Node.js core repo is much more stricter about the global access. We can define a different rule in CTS, and if that's more convenient for our CTS test suite. But usually, yeah, we are more strict in the core repo.
It's pretty laid back right now, but the other pull request that I'm presenting will lock that down, so you can't do it anymore. That's this one, basically. So this one is locking down any use of globals that are not provided by the CTS or the language. Yeah, it was like an allow list with the restrict, like I was restricting, or like a, sorry, it was not an allow list. It was the other way around, like a disallow list. What do you call it? Like a deny list, right? Before, where I said that in this case you couldn't use a require function, right? But now it's turned around, so it's more an allow list.
Yep. Yeah, I think I would definitely pass on to restricting what the global variables that we use in our test suite, because that will help us to avoid like depending on some dependent platform dependent APIs.
I think I remember like for the test I was writing, I had to change some ES lint rules, not ES, but linter rules too. I don't remember what exactly, but it was too annoying. Oh yeah, probably it was some kind of requirement how header of our test supposed to look like, and because I was changing it, it was actually required. Oh, I remember. There is a requirement that every single test supposed to you kind of do require common.
Yes, we do some sanity checks in the core repo in the test common, and that's why we enforces that the common must be required before every other files. And um, yeah, that's why I was suggesting that we should just use normal JavaScript functions to test different add-ons. We should not do any arbitrary like magic commands because that will make it more complex.
Sorry, I didn't catch what exactly we're doing in this common. Like, what?
We were doing sanity checks, like
Yeah.
for example, if I navigate to the common and index, so it's here. So for example, we do like performing global. For example, we check if the test would like. So essentially, it's performing runtime global checks to see if you have any, if the internal API would leak any global variable or global states, and it'll check at when the process is exiting, it'll check if there are any leaked APIs on the global object,
Oh, I see.
and if so, it's kind of like this checks in this file. So we require every test in the core repo to load this test common first before any other tests, so that we will ensure that the core repo tests are doing this kind of like sanity checks.
So what will be vision then we go to with CTS?
We don't necessarily do this in the CTS, but we could do. But I mean, it's not necessary because other runtimes may expose different globals than the Node.js does. So I don't expect that the CTS would like restricting other runtimes from exposing different global APIs, right? So I would not say that we should do this sort of checks in CTS because we only want to test the Node API behavior, not the global object or global APIs.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting sanity check that you have across all your tests. Like you make sure it's like a smoke test, right? That this
Yeah,
might
because
have.
we, for example, internal API may accidentally like exposing global states on the global object, so that's definitely not expected. So yeah.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if a Node API implementation changed like what state. Well, I guess potentially it could leak state into it doesn't make it a non-compliant Node API implementation if it does, right? It does not do that, but still, it's probably not something you want. I don't know, but I also have a hard time thinking that that will happen. But yeah, could
Yep.
potentially. I don't know. It could be a thing. I don't know if it's strictly needed for a CTS.
No, I just think like somewhere in future, we don't really want to kind of have completely two different testing suites like CTS versus like Node API tests. Ideally, they should converge, right? Like at some point, ideally we'll have exactly the same testing suite. So we'll be effectively using CTS for Node API testing.
I think my vision, at least for that, would be I want to see it prove its worth first before asking anyone to make that consideration. Like I think it should be first and foremost, it solves the issue of implementers of Node API which are not Node.js trying to get a compliant, conformant implementation. Right? That's like the goal one, so to speak. And I understand, like from a maintenance point of view, it's a little more like it's not fun to have to update both the Node.js implementation and the runtime agnostic implementation at the same time. And then if the CTS can be trusted at that point, then I understand if somebody wanted to like move over and starting using that. But it's not a success criteria for me that the Node.js project uses it instead of their own test, if that makes sense. And that also might mean that the test coverage is not as good as Node.js, like because Node.js might have more intricate um, tests added on, or it might be a little ahead of the CTS for experimental features, for example, and stuff like that. I think that's okay for now, and then I think we can make a decision if we go on for multiple months where the CTS is trusted by external implementers and it's something that we trust more. I think it's worth having that conversation, but it's not a critical like a success criteria for me that Node.js adopts it necessarily as its only Node API test, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the CTS test suite should be a complementary to Node.js own test suite. So we'll run it in addition to our existing test suite instead of like replacing it.
Yeah, and if it becomes like a burden to maintain, then I guess there's a conversation to be had. But that's only if we can trust it, right? It's like I'm also conscious that we're building this up. Um,
Yep.
Okay, makes sense.
Cool.
and then the
Anything?
last one is just implementing 15 easy tests basically, and they should be pretty much just one by one, one to one. 25.
Yep.
So these are like pretty. They should be very identical between the implementations. Yeah, I'm adding a new helper here to the harness, the must call, which is basically checking that a function was called or it was not called.
Yep.
So this is here, Vladimir, you can see how closely they relate to each of the existing tests.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how are we going to test with vtable or some new features that we are going to land in Node core. So Vladimir, I think it will be beneficial if you can take a look at this as well to see if this matches your vision.
Yeah.
Here, for example, in this case, right, if we look at the function, the load add-on here, the load add-on function is provided by the harness. And if the harness itself has two modes, then it could say, when I'm in the vtable mode, I need to find the file on disk that has the vtable suffix, for example, right? So it could basically branch, the harness could branch and load the other one. So that would mean that there's no change to the test file. It would just be two different modes of running it, and the harness would know about that. So in that case, that would be pretty simple. I think that would probably be the easiest way to implement it.
Yeah, so my current thinking, like effectively, this JavaScript would be changed. So technically, whatever you see in these lines 4 and 5, this kind of fn equal add-on call, and these two guys will be inside of Lambda, and it will be some kind of function which, like you said, will be provided by harness, which would actually do this thing, like and this harness function will load this or provide a load add-on function and pass it in. So yeah. Anyway, let me kind of implement it first. So I think it will be a little bit more. So I had one vision first, and then start to implement. I found all these additional corner cases which didn't work really.
Yeah, I was actually thinking now, like, there's also something about running in debug mode versus release that I'm not really handling right now. And that could actually be another mode switch that we could have for the CTS.
Yeah.
Which I could do a PR for that, because then I can show what I mean about like the CTS having modes when it's loading these. I think that would actually make sense.
Yeah, adding debug mode will definitely be helpful.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Anything else to comment?
I mean, it's a little work to go through all of these for somebody, right? But going through, I mean, for each of the files one by one, I could ask Claude to provide links for them somehow, like a comment on each file, or I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Otherwise, it's just one by one looking at it. You can see it's actually like when you look at the conversation or like the PR description, you can see that I did explicitly ask Claude here for the verdict on the coverage. As it says like identical, if you go up in the table, you can see like the C++, is it identical or not? And like the verdict in terms of like how close it looks assertion by assertion to the existing test. So I did ask it to like thoroughly assess how great of a job it actually did after the fact.
Yep.
You have either, if you don't trust the machine, we can we can go through them one by one. Yeah, I'm using Cloud Code more and more here for stuff like this. I think it's really powerful, to be honest. But I'm also I am reading through all the code that I'm submitting.
I would say I'm not writing code anymore for last, say, like 9 months already. All code written already with AI for me. I call it friendly AI. I'm kind of switching models and switching Copilot and Claude, but yeah. It's just not interesting anymore to write individual if-else statements.
Sometimes I break out and be like, no, this is what I mean. And like, look at what I did. Internalize it, learn from it.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't have anything else than this PR. And then my next work is going to be basically taking some of the harder, medium and harder tests and then starting like porting them. And I envision those being like single PRs per test. It's going to be a little more verbose in terms of like there's going to be more PRs, but it's also going to be easier to review, I believe. So it's not like just a blob of things, but it's a little more contained, hopefully.
It's a great effort. Thank you for doing it. So it's huge.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you too.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? If not, I think I'm going to return the last 5 minutes to you back to allow people to enjoy your weekend. I'll see you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.